lately, because we're in a very strong cash position, we've been buying a lot of things that, frankly, I never thought would be viable. And it's a time that if you have cash, you can make some fantastic deals. But we have buildings like a Trump Tower or 40 Wall Street or others where they're essentially full, they're rented. The leases were signed 2 or 3 years ago. Gucci just moved in a couple of years ago. It's been a great tenant. Lots of other people moved in really before the bad times. And, Manhattan has really not been hit like other places.
What about outside of Manhattan in terms of commercial real estate in general? Because there are so many concerns about Florida, Arizona, California, other places across the country where the losses just aren't known yet. And the fear is that it'll be even worse in the housing fallout. Do you think that's possible?
No, I don't think it will be anywhere near. I think that
Really?
It will be severe, but it will nothing will be like the housing. I mean, that almost imploded our whole economy. The housing was a disaster. And it looks like it's now starting to come back. I see house prices are starting to go up, and I think this is a great time for people to go out and buy a house or buy an apartment or do something. But the commercial's a little bit different. For instance, I thought it was worse in 1990 because there was so much of it. We don't have that much supply compared to 1990 when you had another real estate crisis. And I think the commercial problem is largely a question of financing. There are no banks to do financing. The banks took all this money from the government, but they don't loan it, virtually no matter who you are. And the problem is that as financing comes due over the next couple of years, even if you have a good building, it's really not a financeable thing very easily. Now, I think that'll change, but I think the government has to get involved and make sure the banks loan money.
Is that getting any better in terms of banks working with customers, big customers, commercial real estate, to restructure some of the debt there? It's something you've been able to do successfully of late. Are banks working more with their customers or no?
Well, I have some wonderful banks that I've dealt with. And as an example, in Las Vegas, I have a job that's a beautiful job, completed. We built it on time, on budget, and it's doing really well. And the banks gave us a nice extension of the mortgage. They gave us a fairly long-term extension of the mortgage. But that's an unusual job because it has been successful, and we have sold a lot of units, and it really worked out and will work out very well. But banks, generally speaking, are not giving, they really are not in the financing world right now. And one thing I can tell you, they talk about jobs. You're never going to have jobs because real estate's the biggest industry in the country. You're never going to have building. You're never going to have anything built unless the banks start loosening up. And they're very hard to get money from.
And you said the government has to get more involved than it already is. I mean, I'm surprised to hear that from a businessman, from a capitalist who, forged his way when times were very different and the government wasn't nearly as involved as it is now.
Well, when I say get involved, I don't mean get involved by putting up more money. They've certainly put up a lot of money. I mean get involved by making the banks loan money for good developments. And they really have to become, because the banks have money, but they're not loaning money for good developments.
You think it's because they're hearing from Treasury, we need your capital reserves to be here and we need you to be holding on to more money? Is there, two messages coming at the banks? One is lend more, the other is have more on hand?
Well, I think the standards are very high, and they should be very high. The problem is with all of the billions and trillions even that the banks have taken in, they're not putting the money out. And if they don't put out the money, you're not going to have job creation. You're just not going to have it. And I'm not just talking about real estate business. I'm talking about any business. I have friends that are very substantial people, but if they go to a bank for a loan, you can't get it. There's no money there.